Greetings, squires and squirettes. What's the female equivalent of a squire? Does anyone actually know? Squires and lady squires, it is time to embark on a noble quest. A noble quest in search for answers on what the verdict is for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. The Borderlands franchise has been around for over a decade now, and I've always enjoyed these looter shooters. They aren't earth-shattering or world-changing, but man, do they offer some great, goofy fun. So, does this Borderlands spin-off offer the most looty-shooty, great, and goofy fun of them all? Well, let's find out, shall we? In Wonderlands, you play as the fate maker of the fictionalized version of the board game Dungeons & Dragons. The game master is none other than Tiny Tina, one of the standout characters from the Borderlands universe. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, Borderlands 2 released some post-launch DLC called Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, where you took part in Tina's board game campaign as the board game character. Pretty much everyone who played it absolutely loved it, so they decided to make an entire standalone game based off of the idea. Enter Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. As Tina is the game master, she makes objectives for you to complete as you play through the game, and this leads to some constantly changing and shifting shenanigans that can be quite hilarious at times, and honestly, that aspect of the game remained entertaining throughout my 20 or so hour playthrough.
Before you rise the mighty walls of Greathoof, but you're not the only new arrival. A massive skeleton army is sieging the city! Catapults! Scallymans! Skelly ships! There's bombs raining down!
It was always entertaining to see how Tina would change stuff up on the fly for however many various different reasons. It kept me on my toes, and I was never able to predict what would happen next, as things could quite literally completely change depending on what Tina feels like in the moment as the game's quest master. Tina's voice actor, Ashley Birch, who also almost unbelievably plays the completely different character Aloy from the Horizon series, is in full wacko mode for this character, and she nails it. She nailed it in Borderlands 2 and 3, and she nails it here.
And I, Tiny Tina, am the bunker master, so what I say goes!
Not only is she always entertaining, the rest of the cast in this game is also quite a joy to adventure with. We have Andy Samberg, who plays the gullible Valentine, Wanda Sykes plays the sassy robot Fret, and Will Arnett plays the evil but not so evil Dragon Lord. All of these characters complement each other, and all of their actors do a phenomenal job. Not only that, but the writing for this game is leaps and bounds better than Borderlands 3, which was a huge issue for Borderlands 3 that kind of drove me nuts. So kudos all around in that department. Dragon Lord as the game's big bad doesn't quite reach the same heights as Handsome Jack in Borderlands 2, but Handsome Jack is one of the greatest video game villains of all time, so that's kind of lofty expectations to reach there. It's not to say that Dragon Lord is a bad villain by any means, just not as good at being bad as Handsome Jack.
This jackal rushes me with a spoon. A freaking spoon, and I'm dying laughing, right? So I scoop out his stupid little eyeballs with it, and his kids are all, wah! And I can't even, he can't see where he's going, he's bumping into stuff, and anyway, I don't know, maybe you had to be there. The moral is, you're a total bitch.
The main cast as a whole in Wonderlands, though, is fantastic, and they really bring a lot of life to this game. Because the overall cast is great, it really makes the practically pointless narrative a little jarring, though. I would say that I'm going to avoid spoilers, but there's really not much at all to spoil in this game's story. You play as a literal character on a board game that is there to do the bidding of Tiny Tina as the board game master. The story does play into this eventually, and it's semi-effective as some of the characters in the board game eventually kind of break the fourth wall and address the fact that Tina is controlling everything and her motivations are brought into question, but none of this really matters. How do you get invested into a story that revolves around stuff that's happening on a board game? Now, it does give way to some very creative gameplay scenarios and extremely wacky and hilarious quests, and those are the best parts of the game, but the main narrative suffers because of this premise. That being said, it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. In fact, the side quests here are the main draw for this game. There are so many wacky side characters to meet, so many fun little stories to complete and help with. It's great stuff. I let a quirky demon inhabit my body so he could find a new host. I freed the troll queen from the evil blue Smurfs, not Smurfs. I helped 2 metal bands decide who is the most metal. I helped a skeleton pirate destroy his rival skeleton pirate's invincible plot armor. I solved the ghost's murder. I took little Pookie for a walk, and then Pookie turned out to be not so little. It was just fun, weird, wacky, crazy stuff like this that really kept me playing this game. All of that and so much more was the most fun I had with this. The side quests are the meat of this game, so you really, if you want to play this game, you cannot skip this stuff. They're filled with quirky and weird characters, hilarious and witty writing, and some truly bonkers scenarios that almost always just brought a smile to my face. Still though, nothing quite topped the greatest video game side quest of all time from Borderlands 2.
Shoot me in the face! In the face! Do it! Shoot me in the face! Face, 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 face! Now! Bullets in the face! Want him! Need him! Gimme, gimme, gimme! What are you waiting for? Thank you!
Of course, what you will be doing most in Wonderlands, just like every other Borderlands game, is shooting lots of stuff in the face. And as always, that feels great here. I promise I'm not a crazy person. It feels great to shoot stuff in the face in this video game. While the shooting feels great, I feel like more needs to be done to this series to keep it fun and relevant. Specifically in the gameplay category, something more just needs to be done. Of course, I still had lots of fun in this game. I wouldn't have played it for 20 some odd hours if I didn't think it was fun, but the entire time I was just thinking, man, this game would really benefit from some new gameplay mechanics or movement. And of course, they did add some new things, specifically with spells and melee combat, but it just doesn't feel like it's enough. Moving forward, if Borderlands wants to continue to at least capture my attention, they really need to pump up the gameplay in some different ways. The spells are a great addition, and they feel really good. There's no denying that. The other action skills that are available are all really fun, but the gameplay just feels too slow compared to many other modern shooters and action games. I just recently finished Dying Light 2, and Wonderlands compared to Dying Light 2 just feels like I'm trying to move through quicksand. The whole time I was playing Wonderlands, I just kept thinking about how much more fun the game would be if it took some gameplay cues from Dying Light 2, or Titanfall 2, Doom Eternal, Shadow Warrior 3, Mass Effect Andromeda, Halo Infinite. All first-person shooter / action games, with the exception of Andromeda, but all have wonderful fluidity of movement. And Borderlands desperately needs to give us more gameplay movement options moving forward, and just more gameplay options in general, with ways to spice up the movement and the combat in these games, more than just shooting stuff in the face. I'm certainly not saying that the gameplay is bad. It's good. It's always been good. And while they shook up the gameplay a little bit, they need to shake it up even more and give us more movement options. I think that will really breathe new life into this series, new life that is needed in this series if it wants to continue to captivate the attention of gamers. They also need to make melee combat an actual dedicated combat option. I love that they gave us actual melee weapons to loot and to use, but it's still a secondary kind of last resort option. Make melee combat a legitimate, fun-to-play character build option, and that will also make the game even more fun, because right now, melee is completely secondary and needs more attention and more weight to it. If they spruce up the melee combat and make it a real gameplay character build option with abilities and combat animations, man, that would be a lot of fun. Something else I want to talk about with this game is the loot. Maybe I'm out of practice with Borderlands games. I mean, I never even finished Borderlands 3, and it's been years since I played Borderlands 2, but I felt like this game was unnecessarily stingy with the loot. The game really wants you to collect all of these lucky die hidden throughout the world. When you find one of these, they ever so slightly increase your loot luck so that the chances of your enemies dropping great loot increases. But why? Like, just why?
Why? Why? Why? Why? Why?
Like, I can't stand this. This is honestly the single most annoying thing about this game, and really any looter shooter that has no player versus player modes in it. The same thing annoyed me to no end with Outriders, another single-player story-driven looter shooter with no PvP, and that game was incredibly stingy with legendary loot drops. Why?
Why?
Throughout my 25-ish hour playthrough in Wonderlands, I only had 3 legendary gun drops, 2 legendary melee weapons, and 2 legendary spells. When the tagline for your game is a bazillion guns, then in 25 hours of play, I should be getting a lot more than 3 legendary guns. And I realize that they want you to earn those legendary weapons. I understand that that's the big draw for the in-game content. But again, why? Like, just make the in-game content you receive even more legendary and like higher tier guns that you can only receive from in-game content. But as far as legendary stuff that you can receive while you're playing the game that are the best weapons before you get to the in-game content, just shower us with those. Like, it's a single player game. Give us as much legendary loot as possible, you know, at least like once every hour, not one every 7 hours of gameplay or 10 hours. Like, just go crazy with it. There's no reason for you not to go crazy with that stuff. It's a single player game. Just go nuts. There's no reason not to. It drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. Being generous with legendary weapons and equipment would only make me want to play this game more. But instead, if I want to get legendary weapons more regularly, I have to tediously comb the entire map for these stupid lucky die.
Sir?
What?
Are we being too literal?
No, you fool. We're following orders. We were told to comb the desert, so we're combing it.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir!
No one wants to run around looking for 260 collectibles to find just so we might get a little bit more loot. Just give me the loot! Sorry. Might have gotten a little out of control there.
Almost lost my cool there.
All in all, this is the best looking Borderlands game to date, not just because it's the newest one, but because the setting is more interesting and provides more variety for crazy creativity. The Wonderlands is a beautiful, magical, wacky place. The gameplay is just as fun as it's always been, and even a little bit more fun with some of the additions that they've added, even though they need to add new improvements and changes to keep it fresh. The main story wasn't very compelling, but the characters absolutely carried it, and the side quests are this game's main narrative draw with all the fun, smaller stories packed into it. The loot system needs to be much more generous because it's a single-player adventure with no PvP. Just let us get crazy with mountains of loot from start to finish, and allow the in-game stuff to simply give out the absolute best weapons that you can't find in the main story, only in the in-game. That brings me to the in-game. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the in-game content on offer here. They have introduced what they call the Chaos Chamber, and boy, it is a total blast. I've only scratched the surface on the in-game, but it truly is chaos, and it really is well implemented. Basically, once you reach the in-game, after you've finished the story, they put you into ever-increasingly difficult combat gauntlets that test your skills and give you multiple different buffs and debuffs for various different rewards, depending on the difficulty you take on and the gameplay variations that you choose that come your way. It really is a lot of fun, and it just lets you go wild with what Wonderlands does best. It just lets you go to town on waves of enemies. If you complete the increasingly difficult Chaos run at the end, the best loot in the game awaits. And I actually haven't even gotten far enough into the end game to get the best weapons in the game, but I'll keep grinding away, and I'm sure I'll get that glorious glowing loot to drop, and I'll sing to the RNG gods. So I rate my games not on a number scale, but on a scale from masterpiece to bad. So what that looks like is this. If I say the game is a masterpiece, it means it's simply one of the greatest games I've ever played that is nearly perfect in every way. If I say the game is fantastic, then it's not quite in the GOAT conversation, but it could certainly be a Game of the Year contender. If I say it's very good, that means the game has a few small problems that hold it back from greatness, but overall it's certainly an above average video game, better than most. If I say the game is good, then it's got a few issues that are holding it back from the upper echelon of video games, but absolutely still worth most people's time and money. If I say it's a decent game, then the game had plenty of enjoyable moments, but it was also filled with plenty of not so enjoyable moments. There's certainly a group of people that will find lots of enjoyment out of a decent game, but it's probably not for everyone. If I give the game a mediocre rating, that means the game has some serious problems and there's really only going to be a handful of dedicated gamers that enjoy what the game has to offer. And if I say the game is bad, well, that's it. It's a bad game, and I truly don't recommend the game to anyone. A game that gets a bad rating should just be thrown into the trash and left to rot. So, on the scale of masterpiece all the way down to bad, where does Tiny Tina's Wonderlands land? Well, I say that Tiny Tina lands itself a very good rating. It's not quite fantastic, and it's certainly not a masterpiece, but Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a very good video game. I absolutely enjoyed my time with it, and I would certainly recommend it to Borderlands fans. It would even say that this is the perfect offshoot Borderlands game to jump into if you've never played them before and want to see if you would like the series or not. So let me know what you think about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands in the comments. Have you been playing it? What have you been thinking? Have you finished it yet? What are your thoughts on some of the things that I mentioned that I didn't enjoy about it and want to see improvements on? Did you think it was a masterpiece, or did you think it was bad? Like, where do you think Tiny Tina's Wonderlands lands itself in the video game conversation? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, man. I'm trying my absolute best to put out really good video game content, and I got a small little channel here, and your subscription would help this channel immensely. Every subscription I get from you guys is a huge blessing to me, and I appreciate it so much. So if you enjoyed this, if you enjoy some of the other content on my page, and if you want to see me make some more stuff, please hit that subscribe button. That would be huge. And like this video as well. Lastly, before I go, maybe you're in a stage of life where you feel like nothing is going your way. Just like I felt like I wasn't getting enough lucky loot to drop in Wonderlands. Maybe you just feel like life is working against you and you can't seem to figure it out. First of all, I'm sorry you feel that way. That sucks. I know that life can be difficult. I know life is hard, and to be honest, life isn't a video game. I can complain about how Wonderlands isn't giving me enough legendary loot because it's a video game. It's made for me to have as much fun as possible. That's the point of a video game. Life simply doesn't work that way. Do you feel like you just keep taking one step forward and two steps back? Does it feel like life wants to keep you down, and as soon as you start to get back up, it kicks you in the ribs again? I know, life can feel that way sometimes. Life is not fair, but do not be discouraged for too long. There's hope. Hope is always there. Hope is always right around the corner if you're willing to find it. So get up if life kicks you. Kick back harder every single time. I know life isn't fair. I know life sucks sometimes, and I know that honestly, some things that happen in life are completely devastating. Please, keep trying. Keep going. Don't give up. If you feel like there is no hope, if you feel like there's only sadness and sorrow, talk to someone. Find someone that can help you. And if you feel like you have no one to talk to me. Even if we are complete strangers and have never talked before, if I can, I will do what I can to talk with you and help you find hope. You can comment on this video, or you can DM me on Instagram at The Gaming Pastor. That's THA, The Gaming Pastor, all one word. And I'll do what I can to show you that there really is hope to be found in this life. Once again, it's been fun. I love you all, and I'll see you later.